Hello, I'm Jason Harrington, co-chair of the Spirit Lake Blue Zones Project. This will be the first in a series of videos talking to you about the importance of the Blue Zones Project in Spirit Lake and how those principles can be applied across many communities and in your own life. To start out with, the Blue Zones Project grew out of the Governor's Healthiest State Initiative. The Governor had an initiative to be the healthiest of all 50 states in the nation. At that point in time, Iowa was number 13. As a way of doing that, the basis of getting to that point was something that was called the Blue Zones Project. Blue Zones grew out of a book, or out of research for a book by the name of Blue Zones, the author of which is a gentleman by the name of Dan Buettner. Dan was an author and researcher that had a goal to find what the longest living people on Earth, who they were and where they lived, and if there were any commonalities amongst them. And so Dan did research across the globe and determined that there are 5 communities that had the longest living people, and they referred to those communities as Blue Zones communities. Further, he went on to determine what was similar in each of those communities that created or caused there to be such great longevity. The focus was really on the number of centenarians, 100-year-olds that lived in those communities. So what he found out, interestingly enough, there was nothing similar in terms of their location, continent, climate, one country over another. They were spread out across the globe. A couple of them were in Greece, one of them was in Japan, one of them actually happened to be in the US in Loma Linda, California. What Dan found was that what was important in each of those communities was 9 things that became known as the Power 9 principles. The first of those 9 things was something that was referred to as moving naturally. The idea that not everybody has a gym membership, not everybody's a runner, not everybody's athletic, but built in within those communities is this slight nudge to be active, meaning that there are things in the community that don't prevent or that encourage an active sort of lifestyle. Move naturally. How do we build movement in our day-to-day activities? The second one was know your purpose, and know your purpose is really what it sounds like for those of us that wake up every morning and know why we exist and why we do what we do. Creates significant longevity in our life. In fact, for those people that have a keen understanding of their purpose, there's a statistic that would indicate that will add, those people tend to live 7 years longer than those who don't have that similar identification. A third is downshift, and I think most people understand downshift is how do we manage stress in our life. Stress is the cause of many anti-inflammatory chronic illnesses, as well as cardiac illnesses and a number of other diseases and other medical conditions. And so how do we find time during our day to downshift? Again, taking time away from what's causing us stress. The third one is in those 5 communities that they have what he refers to as plant land. Those communities have a tendency to have a diet that leans more toward a plant-based diet than one that's heavily based on meat. Not suggesting that people should be vegans or vegetarians, but in those communities, meat is really considered a celebratory meal and is not a prominent part of diets in those 5 areas. The 80% rule, this really comes out of Japan, but the idea that our bodies don't recognize that they're full immediately. So the idea is that you eat until you're 80% full, giving your brain the opportunity to recognize, or your body the opportunity to recognize, that it's actually had sufficient food to satisfy your particular need. Wine at 5 is another common theme amongst those 5 areas. So wine at 5 is this idea that really kind of meets 2 different things. I think many people are aware today, assuming you have a healthy relationship with alcohol, that the moderate consumption really of all kinds of alcohol can have positive health benefits. Specifically in those communities, it happens to be a focus on red wine, and because of riboflavins and other things in red wine, it has a little bit even more of an enhanced benefit for your health. The other part akin to that in wine at 5 is I'm having that glass of wine, or 2 glasses of wine as appropriate, with family, friends, neighbors. So I'm connecting. I'm also downshifting in wine at 5. Family first is this idea that, as it says, families come first. In many of those communities that I referenced, elderly parents and extended family live within, a 50-mile radius, sometimes in the same house, but as opposed to what's typical American culture, families are much more physically approximated, and that has an impact on our livelihood. Belonging is this idea of having a faith-based, being able to identify with a faith-based community. And statistics would say that those that identify with some type of faith-based community on average live 8 to 12 years longer than those who do not. The final piece really is called right tribe, and I think for those of you that have children, you'll recognize this as you're a reflection of the people that you hang out with. So as an example, if you hang out with people who smoke, statistically your chances of being a smoker are much higher. If you hang out with people who overutilize alcohol or other substances, you have a much higher risk of doing those same things yourself. So we truly are a reflection of the people we hang out with. That's a very brief overview of the Power 9 principles. We look forward to sharing more information with you about those in the future. Thank you very much.